Scene
Okay.
3, take 4.
Sorry.
And
So I think one of the biggest challenges that our world has right now, that anyone who is building an experience has, is that we've been kind of spoiled. So when Max created all of the experience for the immersive Van Gogh and all the different things in that space, really changed our expectation of what an experience is going to be. And so while my daughter is being raised with these virtual worlds and moving forward, that's has to be the environment she's in at Go. For those of us who are older, Gen X and boomers, who have cash, by the way, to spend on experiences, we're going to expect that same delivery of truly immersive experiences. And by the way, well designed, because I've been to some bad immersive exhibits and they're horrible. So you have to have an artist like Max thinking about this and actually designing it and having it contextually relate to the content.
Scene 3, take 1, soft sticks.
Better? I am Lori H. Schwartz. The passion for Hollywood really started, I would say, when I was like 10 or 11 years old. And it was in the 30s in Long Island. And I remember just absolutely being in love with like MGM musicals. I would watch them day in, day out, and just absolutely be in love with them and how it transported you. And in many ways immersed you into these other worlds, which, we're going to talk about immersive a lot in this conversation, but those musicals transported me to wherever they were. And I was absolutely obsessed with Gene Kelly and Fred Astaire and just all of them, that whole sort of, brightly colored musical thing. And so I grew up wanting to tell stories, wanting to direct or wanting to, just be in front of people.
Scene 3, take 3.
So when YouTube came out, I think the biggest disruptor about it, and what I wish everyone would have understood back then, is the role of the audience, the consumer. I mean, there's obviously this hunger for people to tell their story, to share themselves in video and upload it and let the world see it. And that's how that whole explosion happened. And influencers grew out of it. And there's parallels to what's happening now with the disintermediation of the studio model, and now all these content creators who don't want the studios to have a piece of their action and who are finding ways to monetize their content through fan engagement. So you can actually see a direct parallel to the beginning of these seeds of, people wanting to tell their story. So back then it was YouTube. And it was anything, it was even images on mobile phones when you had the flip phones. It was any way to communicate who you were. And the internet became a way to do that. And now it's the same thing. We want to tell our story. We don't want you telling us how we can tell our story, how much you charging us to tell our story. We want to tell our story. So it's really in parallel. And I remember the agencies and brands that came to the lab and we were telling them about MySpace and YouTube. And they were very paranoid and concerned because, and it's still true today, the loss of being able to control your message and control your brand in the internet. Having a big major brand like the Army or General Mills or General Motors have to surrender their brand in any way, when for years and years the practice was anything that's near the brand is completely controlled. And you're still seeing that battle now, where a message comes out and people rebel against the message, and then the brand has to quickly do an apology or something like that. So that's still happening right now, but it's this idea that you need to surrender to the audience. And that's a big theme for where all of this is going with, AR, VR, immersive, all the different types of content that are coming up now are all about surrendering. So the themes are the same. And it's misunderstanding too how people live. The story I was telling some friends recently about how we had the Army come and we were teaching them about YouTube and MySpace. And they were very concerned, obviously, about any soldiers getting online and posting anything that would, one, be a security risk, rightly so. But what we learned in working with them was that parents loved those channels because they heard from their family abroad, and so what you'll learn over time is that, what something initially is can evolve to something else. It's living. And that's the whole thing about digital and the internet and all these new channels and technologies, is that we start out with an idea of what it is, but it evolves. And it grows and it changes as people start to use it. And that's an important theme too, because, you can talk about startups, and the startups that win are the ones that evolve, not the ones that stick closely to their original vision. When I think about defining the word immersive, again, you have to talk about it from a variety of perspectives. So the initial perspective is audience. Let's just say audience. This concept of immersive, to me, means you're creating an experience for a audience member, a consumer, that really lets them lose themselves in the story world. And when I say story world, I mean the environment that you're creating, whatever it's about, whether it's purely for entertainment, whether it's education, whether you're selling something, whatever it is, that you've created a story. Almost like, think about it like Harry Potter, a franchise. And Harry Potter's world has rules. And so if you're going to immerse someone in the rules of your story world, you better have thought out the entire world. So again, going back to like me growing up learning about directing in an arena theater, you have to 360 that storytelling. You have to understand all the characters, everything about that world, what happens when someone does something, and almost predict how people are going to engage. So when you talk about immersive, again, from the audience's perspective, you are sharing your story with them and hoping that they lose themselves in that story world, right? As a creator, what you're trying to do is tell your story. And so on the outside, you're looking at, how do I make the entrance to this world, really fun and engaging? How do I make the middle experience fun and engaging? And how do I get them out in a way that's pleasurable as well? And then what do I want to do next with them? What do I want them to walk away with? Is there a next step? And I think that's the challenge right now for a lot of immersive experiences, is if you don't handle the intro to the world, whatever the experience is in the inside of it, and then the outro well, then people are not going to have a great experience and they're not going to want to come back. And I think that's been the problem with virtual reality, when the initial technology made so many people sick, and the experiences were kind of lame. And so a lot of people are like, oh, I don't like VR. And it's hard, because once you give someone a bad user experience, once that, the experience design, which is really important and not talked about enough, the actual user's experience in these worlds, in these immersive worlds, if you haven't thought about all of these points, then you're in trouble. So I think that's the biggest challenge right now. Even defining immersive, it doesn't only mean the experience itself, right? I think you can look at, a great example of this is live immersive theater. Where people are all over the globe putting on a headset and participating in theater, in shows that are theater. My colleagues at Double I Studios do this, where they actually have a copyrighted procedure for what your experience is getting into their world. And they've written, dialogue that their actors say, and they teach you as the character how to move through the world so that you understand, oh, I am now a chorus member in Apollo's theater, and your outfit changes on your body in the VR experience. And they've written story to explain it. And they move you into the world, and then you're in the world. And then they have to figure out how to get you out of the world. And so all these things are really important. So immersive it's a big job. You can say immersive, but people think about just bits and pieces of it. It's everything. The big project that just got launched that the public seems to be very excited about is the MGM Sphere. And that is a very tactical, easy to showcase way of explaining immersive, in that even if you don't go, First of all, the first project out of that was U2, right? And everybody loves U2 and they understand what it is, and they love immersing themselves just in that music. But when you see the images posted online and they're gorgeous and it's robust and it's exciting, and then all your friends are posting from being inside of the experience and it looks great, it's an immediate demonstration of the payoff. It's something that we, regular people who don't live and breathe this like we all do in this business, can see. This looks really cool. I want to go do that. You know, it's just like when like Disney's Epcot Center, you know, launched, and all of a sudden you could be in Europe, but you were really just in Florida. I don't ever want to go to Florida, but anyway, you know, when I went to Epcot Center as a 16-year-old, I was like, oh my God, this is the greatest thing in the world. I want to live here. I want to get married in Epcot Center. And then you go to Europe and you realize, oh, Europe is actually much better than Epcot Center. But it's telling the story. So I think what the Sphere has done a great job of, and also just from people being there and now capturing the experience on their phones, is communicate this wonderful, very visual, unique experience. And so I don't know that it's really fully immersive. It's still kind of proscenium. You're still sitting and you're in a, you know, sort of large circle. So they're not telling you a story. They're not asking you to be anyone. You know, you're really just having content immersed around you. But I don't think there's a story world being delivered. I think it's visually really cool, and they've done a great job. But it's the same thing as going to a Taylor Swift concert. I mean, if you see how well the movie's doing, obviously Swifties rule the world, but what's so amazing about it is how she moves video around on all of those screens and what you can really do with display technology right now. So I would argue that a Taylor Swift concert, or even I just went to Pink, what they're doing with the LED walls now and how they're all different shapes and how you can have multiple things going on, that creates an immersive experience. And each song becomes a story world. So to me, that's probably a bigger playoff on immersive than sitting in a 360 theater.